Like, who is cut out for that? In some sense, you could say, who is cut out for living? Certainly, our psychology doesn't really back that up. Who is cut out to be a stoic? I don't think anyone's cut out to be a stoic. The young cowboy, he was continuously feeling his legs because they were rubbed raw. He was on a horse's back for far too long. And of course, he's a new cowboy, so he doesn't have the calluses built up. He doesn't have the toughness built up in his legs. He's aching. He's sore from all the hard work. And in his pain, he goes to the actual cowboy, the more experienced cowboy, and he says, I don't think I'm cut out for this. The older cowboy says, well, nobody is, Jimmy. It's got to be cut into you. Now, for those who don't know much about cowboyism, myself included, I don't know a damn thing about cowboyism. And I'm even Canadian, so, I guess I know how to build a snowman, but in terms of riding a horse, no, there are some horse people up here, but not myself. But it's very tough work. It's very laborious. It's very physically demanding. And so I think when we're talking about things like how to be useful as a person, which is really what the Stoics want you to do, they want you to become useful. There's lots of ways that you can summarize the idea of Stoicism. You could say it's be pro-social, be virtuous, be courageous, be strong. And one of the ways you could say is actually just be useful. Because if you're useful, you're inherently doing something of value for other people, and so you're naturally pro-social. If you're useful, you're probably also courageous, because for you to be useful, you have to do things that maybe some people are not willing to do, including things like hard work. Now, if you want to take that idea of being useful, for you to be useful, for you to become useful, this isn't something that happens overnight. And it takes a lot of hard work. And I think in some sense, our culture has segregated into a lot of people who feel like, you just really do the bare minimum to get by, and you live for the weekend. And you're 9 to 5 and you don't work extra for the company. Why would you work extra for the company? You turn off your phone, your work phone, after 5. And then you have like this small minority of people who are really getting after it, who are really pushing the envelope, the David Goggins type. And maybe it's always been that way, I'm not sure. But it feels to me like there's this very small group of people that are, in a sense, overcompensating for the general idea of society right now, which is to just kind of do the bare minimum. But for you to become useful, like, you have to go through just a really difficult learning phase. And this is why nobody wants to do it. In this example, you have a kid who used to be a drug addict. That scene's from Yellowstone, by the way. I didn't mention that, but that scene's from Yellowstone, which I just started watching. And it's a series I always wanted to watch, and it just showed up on Netflix, so I'm starting to binge it. But he comes from a criminal background, and he's thrust into this very difficult work. And he says, I don't think I'm cut out for this hard work. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not tough enough. And the wisdom there that the older gentleman imparts on him is that, like, nobody's cut out for this. Nobody's cut out for this. Everything in society that is useful to society, all the difficult things, being an engineer, being a doctor, being a server, being someone who works at the drive-thru that's got to deal with snotty people all day. Nobody's cut out for that. Nobody's really cut out for something like that. And if you think about what that imagery is, if you can imagine a piece of cloth, let's say, and you're going to cut out a face cloth, let's say, you're going to make yourself a little face cloth. If you're cut out for something, it means There's this base material, and you're making a cut, and you're going to exactly be cut into the shape of whatever the purpose is. In this case, let's say a face cloth. Now, in life, we are somewhat cut out for things more than others. We all have strengths and we all have weaknesses. Some people are taller, some people are shorter, some people are smarter, some people are better at math, some people are better at, connecting with people, at listening to people. But for a large part of who we become, we're not cut out for it. We're not cut to the shape of what it is. We're more like just the full raw material, the tablecloth that you have to cut from. And so the wise cowboy, he says, nobody's cut out for this. You're not going to just be born and be able to be whatever you want to be useful. No, no, no. It has to be cut into you. So you are not taken from something. You are slashed and cut down and depurified, you could say, into something that's actually useful. The Michelangelo idea of a statue, a raw statue with, it's just basically nothing yet. But then through the process of taking a chisel and a hammer and cutting away everything that you don't want, everything that's unuseful, everything that's not good about yourself, you're cutting it away. And eventually, if you do that over years and years and years, you become something that's good, that's useful. Hey there. Let me thank you for being a listener to this ad-free podcast. If you enjoy the podcast, there are a few things you can do to help me out. A 5-star review on Spotify or wherever you're listening to this really does help, and it's free. You can also sign up for my Substack newsletter or Patreon. Substack free gets each episode emailed to you along with the transcripts in the form of an article. You'll also get access to my live talks, followed by a Q&A afterward. Substack Premium supporters and my patrons on Patreon get access to the recordings and a brief article of those Q&A sessions, access to full episodes of the Paradoxically Speaking podcast, my Steps to Success interview series, Stoic meditations, and much more. Links to Substack and Patreon can be found in the show notes. Now you can imagine if you were cut out for something, if you were just born to fill the role without any growth, without any pain, you can imagine how much easier that would be, right? You just fit into the role as opposed to being cut yourself. And I like to think that everyone, every single human being that's ever existed has to go through that process. In some sense, you could argue that you're not even cut out to live. We all have this natural fear of death, of pain, of suffering. We have this natural fear of loss of our parents, our loved ones. We have fear of never having enough. We have all these desires that the Stoics preach about. They say, temper your desires, learn to control them, learn to let go, learn to detach, learn to get away from material possessions, learn to connect with people at a very deep level, but don't attach to them. Like, who is cut out for that? In some sense, you could say, who is cut out for living? Certainly our psychology doesn't really back that up. Who is cut out to be a stoic? I don't think anyone's cut out to be a stoic. No one's just cut out to be a stoic. No, you have to work at it. It's something that takes time and a lot of hard work. And unfortunately, it takes a lot of pain. Cutting parts away of yourself that is not useful. Your laziness, your selfishness, your anger, your hate, your resentment towards that kid in 5th grade that, kicked you in the shin, made fun of you in front of everyone. Like these these resentments that we carry with us throughout our lives, man, you got to let that stuff go. And you're not cut out for that because our psychology wants us to get obsessed with things, to carry things around, to get angry because we're afraid and we don't have the courage to overcome that fear. I mean, can you imagine if one was cut out to be a power lifter, to be a weightlifter, if you could just be born and then all of a sudden, without any training, you can go win the Olympics at Olympic weightlifting? Can you imagine if some people were just cut out for that? People like to think that. People like to think that other people that are successful, that they're cut out for that. Oh, that's just who they are. And they're not seeing the work, the difficulty, the pain, the suffering, the sacrifice, the cutting away of everything that's not useful. Now, I touched on an idea there earlier that I want to just focus in on a little bit because it's somewhat paradoxical, because the Stoics also say that you should live according to nature. One of that being live according to your personal nature, which includes where you are and your environment and your strengths and your weaknesses. And so in some sense, you could say that we are more cut out for some things than we are for others. Based on me living in Canada, being born in Canada, being born in, let's say, a fishing family, being great at mathematics. I was just given genetics that made me good at mathematics. Given all these things, you could argue that perhaps I was more cut out to be an engineer than someone who wasn't particularly good at math. Maybe they're more artsy. Maybe they like to paint. Maybe they're a really good painter. And trust me, dear listeners, I am not a great painter. I'm a terrible, terrible artist. But I do have other strengths. And so in some sense, yes, you can say that, okay, if you have this canvas, you could say, well, maybe that canvas we can cut out, I don't know, maybe this shape and maybe that shape. But that doesn't mean you can cut out absolutely any shape. And that doesn't mean that the cutting out of that shape doesn't require cutting and pain and suffering along the way. I can assure you, as much as I am, quote, quote, cut out for engineering, say, the sacrifice and the suffering and the studying and the cutting away of the lazy part of me that just, it had to be cut away for me to be successful in engineering, that still was painful. And it's the same for you. And so I encourage you to have a look at your strengths, have a look at what you're good at, have a look at what maybe you are actually cut out for, but don't let that be the ultimate defining idea on where you go with your life. And I think in some sense, this is a bit of a sad truth in that for you to be useful, for you to be a good person, it has to be cut into you. Like, it's going to take some development. It's going to take some growth. That's going to be painful, some growing pains. It's also encouraging because if you're that young cowboy with inner thighs just bleeding from the horse, and you're looking at these other cowboys and you're thinking, well, like, these guys are great at what they do. They're so good. But then you can understand that they were beginners too at one point, that they were bleeding from their thighs, that they were crying because of the pain. They didn't have what it takes. They weren't cut out for this either. They were just developed over years of hard work into something that is actually good. I think that's an encouraging thought. Because no matter where you want to go, if you have this idea, this dream of something that you want to do, if you have this title that you want to get, if you have this degree you want to get, this family life, whatever it is, this goal of yours, I think it's encouraging to say, well, of course I'm not cut out for that. Of course, I'm not cut out for that. But damn it, if I work hard enough and I have my priorities straight, and I understand that I'm not cut out for that, and I understand and accept the pain that's going to take it for me to move from where I am to where I want to go. If I can accept all of that, then I can cut this thing that I want to be. I can cut it into me and I can actually become that thing.